giving the introductory talk today will be Elizabeth Goldstein, and she's been practicing with the Quantum School of Zen since 1999, and is a Dharma teacher in training, and she's a member of the Providence Zen Center in the Quantum School of Zen online community. She lives in South Burlington, Vermont with her family, and she's a psychotherapist in private practice. And so she's going to do the introductory talk, and answering questions today is Mark Brenner. And Mark Brenner, unfortunately, I don't have your introduction. Oh, here we go.
By the way, she's a Dharma teacher now. I want to call that out. Oh, yeah, let's shift that to Mark.
I can't see.
Mark Brenner is a senior Dharma teacher and practices at the Providence Zen Center as well as with the Quantum Online Sangha. He began practicing transcendental meditation in 1976 and has practiced with the Quantum School of Zen since 1988. Mark took 5 precepts in 1993, became a Dharma teacher in 2002, and a senior teacher in 2010. He holds a PhD in clinical social work, is a licensed independent clinical social worker, and professor emeritus at Bridgewater State in Massachusetts. He volunteers with the Red Cross as a disaster mental health clinician for local and national disasters, as well as providing resiliency workshops of members of the military and their families. Mark lives outside of Boston with his wife. He's the father of 2 married daughters and a proud grandfather.
It's so nice to be here in person with all of you today. I live about 4.5 hours from here in Burlington, Vermont, so it's a little hard for me to get down in person. And usually I'm on Zoom. I see that they said they couldn't have sound. Okay, we're good? Okay, great. Usually I can't see anyone when I'm doing these talks, so it's nice to be here. I promised a Kwansanim that I would say nothing, so hopefully that is what I do. And I have just under 15 minutes to say nothing, so here goes. What I wanted to talk to you today about is form. The form of our school. The forms have always been a struggle for me. Since I started just sitting Zen in 1999 when I started graduate school in a clinical psychology training program. And I knew that I wanted to learn Zen-style meditation practice. I'd read a book, actually, the diary of this woman who practiced, I think, a Soto style of Zen over in Japan. And she did Mu practice. And so that was one of my first attachments to our form, was being disappointed that we don't Mu. So I had some attachment there. Though actually, in my town, even before that, there were 2 groups that were offering Zen meditation practice, and one of them was a Vipassana-style meditation practice. And so actually I went there first, but there were 2 things that I struggled with. One was the people who led the meditation practice talked a lot, and I thought, well, one thing I assumed about Zen is that there wasn't a lot of talking. So the other thing was they did the raisin thing. Have any of you done the raisin thing, the mindful eating, where you take a raisin and they give you a lot of instructions about how to chew the raisin and how to taste the raisin, and I didn't like that at all. I don't like it when people tell me how to eat. So that wasn't for me. I mean, no problem if that's your thing. It's great. And actually, as a psychotherapist, it's very often used as resiliency trainings and that kind of thing. So I had a lot of familiarity with it from that perspective. I still didn't like it. So the first thing I noticed when I started sitting in our style, where the focus was the primary teaching is only don't know, and that seemed like very reasonable to me as I was starting graduate school and I was jamming my brain full of as much knowledge as I could put in there in 4 years. So it seemed that balancing that out with only don't know made a lot of sense to me. And I really jumped in with only don't know. I made a conscious decision to not come at this practice intellectually. I didn't read about Zen. I didn't read about sutras. We have the Heart Sutra as one of our chants. And I mean, I struggled to learn that. It took me 15 years just to learn the Heart Sutra, which is in English. So you can imagine how long it took me to learn the other ones. Not that I have learned the other ones. I don't want to give a false impression. So the only don't know made a lot of sense to me. And then our teaching for basic meditation to just sit and notice what your senses are sensing. Notice what you're feeling, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and try to not judge that as good, bad, right, or wrong, but just let it come and let it go. And the same with thoughts. Well, none of that was easy for me. I struggled with that. I was in graduate school, and it was a very difficult and competitive and very kind of research and academic-oriented program. So I was overthinking a lot and very busy. I barely had time to brush my teeth. And so when I would come to weekly meditation practice, my mind was like a dumpster fire and of just so much. And that I would just sit with that and notice that was happening and get to just see my mind instead of just being always busy using my mind to chase after the next thing. And I got actually scared because I started to notice that I have some actually kind of crazy thoughts. And I was in graduate school, and that was actually kind of ironically that I was in a clinical psychology program, but it was really pretty much the craziest I've been. And I've had cancer, and been through cancer treatment, and I still say graduate school was the hardest. I was the craziest. Well, I started to notice that I was sitting there during these 30 minutes of meditation, and I started to think that everyone was having bad thoughts about me. And I was kind of floored by that because I never noticed that I had that kind of anxiety, that kind of social anxiety that people were thinking bad things about me. And I was even sure during that meditation that people were thinking bad things about me, like right then and there while we were meditating. And being in a clinical psychology program, I was able to identify that as an actual psychotic delusion, which didn't make it better. And was really very humbling to see what was going on in my mind when I just sat there and looked at it. I mean, because in clinical psychology, we spend a lot of time looking at the mind, but it's in a very specific kind of a way. And it's different than Zen practice, and it's useful, but it's really very different. Then I came to, I did a day-long retreat, and I met Bobby at one of those retreats, and then I really decided that I wanted her to be my teacher, and it was because there was a person who came regularly to that meditation group who I found really irritating. She complained about everything, and she kind of always had this like very logical but flawed logic response to everything Zen, which it just was grating a little bit. And during the question and answer period with Bobby on that day-long retreat, she did that. She would ask this very very logical but surface question about some fact, like how could this be? And Bobby tried to reply in a Zen style, and she tried a few times, and then eventually Bobby said very nicely, Zen isn't for everybody. And she was so nice about it. It wasn't that she was irritated with this person. I mean, I don't know, maybe she did have some sort of a thought in there, but I was really impressed with that, to see how she didn't struggle with this person the way I was struggling with this person. And I thought, I have something to learn from her. So I actually came down to a retreat. The person who led that group in Maine told me I should come down to Kilche, that it would be fun. And so I took spring break one year, and it was the year I was studying for my comprehensive exams. I probably had like 5 hours of sleep in a week, and didn't know what the schedule was because nothing was online. I didn't know what the schedule was until I was on my way down here gassing up. And then I was so poor. When I saw the schedule, I thought, oh my God, I can't do that at 4:15 a.m. And, but I also was so poor that I thought, I can't afford to not get my money back, and I don't know what else I'm going to do this week. So I decided to just come down anyway. And it turns out I accidentally came to intensive week. And actually, one of the most, by reputation, one of the most intensive Zen masters was leading that retreat. So, and he gave this talk about how important it was to stay in the retreat and to do your commitment and no wiggling. That's what I remember from his intro. So I was in a lot of pain, and I went and talked to him in the interview, and I said, my knees hurt. It's distracting. Do you have any suggestions? And so he gave me a lecture about the difference between suffering with a big S and suffering with a little s. And I wasn't brave enough to say what I thought at that time, which was, well, who decides what's a big S and what's a little s? Because my knees really hurt. And I didn't trust myself. And it took me a long time to understand that in a way that was useful to me. Many, many years. I don't have time. I see the time, so I don't have time to tell you all the things I wanted to tell you, but I decided I would leave that retreat. But I would decide I'm not leaving unless it's clear to me that that's what I want to do. Like it has to be clear. I couldn't decide. I was sitting there just torturing myself, overthinking, and I should stay, I should go, I should stay, I should go. And also refused to just sit in a chair, which is part of our form. I told you this was about form and my struggles with the form. I was too proud to sit in the chair. Nobody else was sitting in a chair. It was intensive week, which now I understand. It was all those, like a bunch of hardcore guys up there that week. And so I sat there in a lot of pain, and I said, I'm not leaving until I figure this out. And then I had this moment of clarity and realized it didn't matter if I stayed or left. And so I really just wanted to jump out of my seat and just run right then. But I waited, and asked the proper way to exit a retreat. And so that's what I did. And then several years passed, and I started to do a little reading. I thought, if I'm committing to this thing, I better redo some reading. So that's when I learned that there were gates to all of these koans. Like there was a step 1, step 2, step 3. And then once I learned that, I was kind of a goner, because all of my ambitious achievement mind applied to all the koans, and so I got all kinds of neurotic about that. I really have struggled with koan practice ever since. But I came back to retreat, because something happened. Something was there. All the struggles, all the internal turmoil, all the torture, all these forms. On the long retreats on Kilche, I would just sit through the chanting periods at night, just waiting for them to be over. And then I would sit through the sitting periods, just waiting for them to be over. And I went through many Kilches like that. And what I learned, I finally, many years later, read this book, The Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch. And some things became clearer to me. Well, first is that moment I had of clarity on the cushion at that retreat, where I left feeling with my tail between my legs, feeling pretty like a failure. I experienced samadhi. I had a moment of, like, when they describe in this book what Pure Land joy is, in this place before thinking. Oh, that's what that was. And this is like 12 years later. I had no idea. And I knew enough by that point to not attach too much to that. Like, I didn't make a lot of that. But what I did get out of reading that book was about prajna. So samadhi is like the light, and prajna is like the function of the light. And so I realized that one thing that was happening is that, in spite of all the torture that I felt on retreat, that there was a very big difference between the quality of my mind on retreat and the quality of my mind in my daily life. So when I read this thing about prajna, the function of the light, the forms, the living correctly, the living in the correct relationship to the situations in your life, I realized that I really needed to get my shit together. That there was a very big difference between my daily life and how I was living in my daily life and how I was living on retreat. Now, I made way too much of that. I turned that into a prajna form, a prajna box that I was trying to fit myself into. If I just did this prajna thing, if I just did this the form thing correctly, then I would get it. I would get this peace of mind that all these people seem to have sitting there that I don't have. And so for a long time, I was trying to do that. And then one retreat, something happened and I finally got it. Like, when they say there's nothing to do, like, it really means there's nothing to do. Like, all this time I was spending trying to do a thing, this, now I identified it was like this thing called prajna, that was empty. That really, it's not something somebody else is doing, that we have to use our own minds. And that's why I'm telling you my path. It isn't that this is your path. I mean, I hope actually it isn't. I hope your path is easier than my path. But that we have to make the practice our own. We have to find that way to sit with ease, to sit with clarity, and be in relationship to anything that we encounter in our daily lives in a way where we use our own mind correctly. And so it isn't something that you do outside yourself. It isn't someone you emulate outside yourself. It's making it your own. And that's where it comes together. And that's where it comes together in don't know. So I think that's where I'll end. I know I talked a little extra. And that's where we land with don't know as a guiding place to rest with whatever this form is, or that samadhi, or whatever it is that we're encountering. And whether that's putting it all down or behaving with compassion, whatever it is, that's what it means, don't know, to just face it with your own mind in the best relationship you can have to that situation so you can find your true function. And I hope that you all will. Thank you.
So, thank you for Elizabeth for coming down from Vermont. It's a long drive. I did find it somewhat interesting because I understand that there are more cows in Vermont than people. And that your first attraction to Zen was moo. So it's a little ironic, but it's interesting. And so thank you for sharing your path. So I'm also coming down here today. I actually was at home before this. And because I'm also a member of the online Sangha, and the online Sangha was having a ceremony this morning for Buddha's birthday. So we had Buddha's birthday the beginning of April ceremony here. And so I was the MC for the ceremony this morning. And so I bring greetings from around the world. There are practitioners there from Asia, from Europe, from across the United States and South America. So it's a wonderful time. And I think I'll start by asking if there are any questions.
So first of all, thank you both. You have a career in stand-up, by the way. If you could have a show about talks about everything, but really about nothing. So I do have a question. You mentioned about you practiced TM before, and I have a lot of folks that I know that went from TM to this type of practice, and I just am curious. Since we've been talking about form and different things, what is that? Did you feel there's a easy connection from going from your TM practice to Zen?
Okay. So I started practicing TM in 1976. I was in college, and I practiced TM for 4 years. But I was a guy who asked questions. And I mean, I asked questions. And the answer was always, you don't need to know that. and so it felt a form without a form. So there was this mantra practice and then this stuff. Then there was also, people practice TM, it's a wonderful practice. But it started to get a little woo-woo for me. They started talking about flying and teaching people to fly. I thought, okay, but you had to pay a certain amount of money to learn to do this. So this is, there's no form here. I mean, there's a form, but there's no. So for me, it didn't continue to work. What did work was this sense of settling that happened with meditation. And so that was my first practice, my first experience of feeling really settled. Because this sense of anxiety is shared. And so this sense of settling. And so I was looking for something like that would help me to do that. And in 1988, there were no computers. And so you can't go online. So you go to this alternative newspaper and you kind of go through that and find this little box that said, Introduction to Zen. And I thought, okay, well, I'll do that. And so that's what brought me to this practice, where I ask questions. And yes, there's don't know, but there's also this whole lineage that goes, there's this lineage chart here that goes from Zenmetsu Sungsang, the founding teacher of this school, all the way back up to the Buddha. So I found a depth here, I found a sense of history, I found a whole lot of books to read, but I also found don't know mind, and I found a way of practicing that was helpful.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I did orientation this morning, and we have some people who are new here, and I did not get into koans, and I didn't get into what kolche means. I said we had long retreat. So I just wondered if you could maybe give a little overview of what a koan is and what kolche is. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, okay. So kilche is a Korean word that means like tight practice. There's a monastery in the back of the grounds, a traditional Korean style roof monastery, where we have kilche. Kilche is a 90-day retreat. In the middle of that 90 days, there's something called intensive week, which I've never done before. Because the day starts at 4:30 in the morning at kilche, and then it goes until 9:45 at night. And then during intensive week, because they haven't had enough practice between 4:30 and 10 o'clock, they wake up at midnight, do 108 full prostrations, sit for 2 hours, go to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, then wake up at 4:30, and they do the whole day over again until it's 10 o'clock, go to sleep, 2 hours, wake up for a week. That's kilche. I just do regular kilche, which is intensive enough. I mean, so you wake up at 4:30. So in our school, we have 5 practices. We have bowing practice, we have sitting practice, we have chanting practice, walking practice, and kungans. And during kilche, you experience all of those. So you wake up at 4:30 in the morning, you do 108 full prostrations, bowing practice. Then we do 45 minutes of chanting, including the Heart Sutra and other sutras. And then we sit for an hour and a half, sitting practice. So we have these sitting practices like we did this morning, 25 minutes to 40-minute periods, and then we walk for 10 minutes. And then we also then have, we do then breakfast, and then that continues through the day. So kilche is an intensive meditation retreat. Not recommended to do without having some experience with a half a day, with a full day, with a weekend, and then work up to kilche. And if you decide to do kilche, which is a wonderful experience, I did 2 weeks this year, which was completely wonderful. Don't start on the middle week. Go another week. Kungans are something which our school is known for, because there are 1,750 traditional kungans. Kungans are cases. They're cases usually between a student and a teacher, And an example of a kongan would be, there was a student and a teacher having tea, and the teacher held up this cup like this and said, "Don't tell me this is a cup, and don't tell me this is not a cup. What is this?" And then the student answered, the teacher smiled, and they continued having tea. So that's the case. The question would be, if you were there and you were the student, how would you answer? So these are the types of questions that are kongans, cases, that our school uses as a way of really waking up. I found kongans to be incredibly helpful as a way of just showing up to a situation that they have no clue what's going on. I was a professor at a university. The dean would call you into the office, and you have to show up. And so how do you show up to a situation where you have some anxiety? Why is the dean calling? But you have to just be there. So kongans are a way of practicing with our mind and with the situation so that we can just show up. So those are, that's kilche. During the summer, we have summer kilche. It lasts for a month. You can sit for 3 weeks if you'd like. And during the winter, it's 90 days. But the shortest period of time you can sit is 1 week. And there's kilches in Korea, in Hong Kong, in Europe. So our school practices kilche around the world. So, kilche. A question?
Yeah, I have a specific question actually about the retreats. I've practiced in Theravada for years, and I've gone on retreats. And in Theravada retreats, if you're tired in the middle of the day, you could just walk back to your room and rest. And so I'm thinking of taking the 3 days here and the summer. And I am older now and thinking there'll be times I might need to rest in the middle of the day. On these retreats, is that permitted?
What
So,
we do is like people 65 and older, some of us old folks do need to have a rest, and so that we do allow for that. And why else, we just put the emeritus up there.
Thank you.
okay.
You would know that answer.
Yeah. Yeah. So I turned 69, so do I count? Turning 69 this summer. Yeah. So I think what's helpful to do in kilche, rather than what the first teacher told you, is just sit. Is that when I do kilche, I sit on a cushion for some sessions. I sit in a chair for some sessions. I do a kneeling bench for some sessions. I stand when I need to. So you need to listen to your body as well. And now I know there's a pass, because I'm over 65, that I can actually just skip. So thank you. But there's also something about just sitting through it. I don't know. There's something about also just being there, being present. But you have to do this for yourself. You have to really do this for yourself.
There's also some rest periods.
And there are also rest periods. I also found during the 2 weeks, napping. Napping is really helpful. And I found that, there's 10 minutes. I'm going to sleep now. And I would fall asleep for 10 minutes and then wake up. So there's about an hour or so after meals that if you don't have a work job, then you can also nap. So.
Okay, now just since he's on that, is that we decided to, we used to start sitting after lunch at 1:30, and this next few coaches will start at 2 o'clock, so people can have a longer rest period.
Oh,
And there's yeah, so that's,
yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay, great. Although I have heard, I spoke with a woman who had come here from Hong Kong to sit, and our kilche, no comparison, is much tougher than theirs in Hong Kong. So, but she really appreciated the tight forms here. So, a question.
Yeah, so when I'm meditating recently, I just think a lot about work and, work anxiety and outside of work as well and during work. I was just curious, how can Zen help with, anxiety with occupations?
With occupations, yeah. So when you're sitting, we have, in a sense, this mind. We can have this, what we call monkey mind, the mind that jumps from thing to thing to thing. We think about work, we think about school, we think about what we're going to have for dinner, we're thinking about why we're sitting, we think about why we're thinking, and we think. What's important to know is that when that appears, then you just go back to your practice. So whether that's counting your breaths, whether that's clear mind, don't know, whether that's whatever your practice is. So meditation then becomes like training a puppy to sit. So you have a puppy and you want the puppy to sit and you say sit. And the puppy sits for a little bit and then gets up and walks away, like your mind does. And then you bring the puppy back and say, no, sit. And the puppy sits a little bit longer, then gets up and takes off. And you simply bring it back. So with sitting practice, it's important to make a commitment to sit for either 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour, whatever, and to just commit to that period of time. And then when you realize your mind has gone off from your practice, whatever that is, simply notice that, acknowledge it, and then simply bring it back without judgment, without anything. What eventually happens is the mind settles down. And then you're able to just sit. But it takes practice. But don't judge it. Just acknowledge, everybody's mind wanders. I've been practicing for a long time. It still wanders, but I simply bring it back.
And then during the day, same thing, try to sit down, or just while you're doing your daily routine, try to think, don't mind, clear mind, don't know.
If that's your practice, yeah. So I use Om Mani Padme Om. Om Mani Padme Om is a mantra. So I've been using for a number of years. And it's kind of like always going in the back of my mind, Om Mani Padme Om. And when something is distressing, Om Mani Padme Om comes back, and that's just, it helps to settle me down. So if clear mind works for you, then do that. It was interesting. I've been practicing for a long time with clear mind, don't know. And then I went to an interview with a teacher, and they asked me what my mantra was, and they said, "Oh, you've been using that one too long." And they said, "Oh, you need to use Kwansam Bosal. That's the mantra that you should use." And I thought, well, I'll try it. I tried it for a month. Kwansam Bosal. It didn't, for me, it just didn't take. And then the teacher said, okay, use Om Mani Padme Om. For me, Om Mani Padme Om was like a match to dry grass. I mean, it just took over. And so that's become my mantra. So find something that works for you. but you need to try something for a while before you decide either that's going to work or that's not going to work. So that's my recommendation.
Good morning. Thank you for mentioning that, because I actually struggle with what is my mantra while I'm meditating, and I actually ended up not telling anybody else, but this is something I'll tell you for the first time. But my mantra actually ended up becoming Kwansam Bosam, don't know. That works for me, and I was wondering if that was actually good or bad. And I'm glad you mentioned that, so I feel a little bit better. But anyway, my son, I have two sons. One's 18. He actually he decided to actually, he's been here a few times when he was younger, but he's actually now practicing Christianity, and he goes on retreats. And we were just driving around one day, me driving, and he in the car is actually a good captive audience, and we can talk about things. And he actually said, tell me more about, I actually asked him, tell me more about the retreats, and he actually told me about what kind of experience that was. And he actually asked me what kind of retreat experience I have. I said, well, I've only been to a few, maybe one day, keto, and a couple of days, and not really intensive ones. And we actually said, and he actually asked me, what do you get? What do you get when you actually go to retreat? And of course, at that moment I said, instinctively I said, nothing. I guess we're sort of trained to say nothing, but without really thinking about it, I just said nothing. And he comes back and said, if you're getting nothing, why do you even bother going? And at that moment I was kind of stuck, and I had to think about it, not say anything for a while, and probably easily 2 to 3 minutes passed, we weren't saying anything, and I said, that's actually a good question. That's, intellectually I know that it's to strengthen our training and everything else, but do we really get anything out of a retreat? And I think I already know the answer, but I'd like to hear what you think of it from someone who's coming outside of the Zen realm. Thank you.
So what do you get from retreat? Well, the first thing I want to say is, thank you for actually meeting your son honestly.
By the way, I actually offered to invite him to come to Christian Buddhist retreats.
Yeah.
Find out for yourself.
Yeah. And Christian practice can be very strong as well. And if that's the path he chose at 18, then that's wonderful. And so it's interesting because so I was actually at LaSalle Academy. LaSalle Academy is a Catholic high school in Providence. And I meet every semester with the religion students there, the senior students. And I told them about Kilche, and I told them about meditation practice, and they asked me what I got about that. I was just there on Tuesday. And it's very subtle, because every time I come back with something. And I think, so actually what I told them is that what I learned this time is you can't hold on to a damn thing. Everything's constantly changing. I mentioned that I was in charge of the morning bell chant, and so I would strike the bell, and sometimes you'd hit it just perfectly, and it just resonates throughout the room. And sometimes you hit it just a little off, and it's just not right. But the good stuff goes, the bad stuff goes, everything goes. The subtle part is that intellectually we can talk about impermanence, that change is constant. What happens at Kilche, and what happens with retreat, and what happens with nothing, is that it goes from up here to down here, and then you really believe it. So that's what happens to Kilche. Bobby Rhodes, Zen Master Sung Young, Elizabeth teacher, my first teacher, would talk about believing in yourself. But it's believing yourself not up here, but it's down here. And so that's what happens to Kilche. It allows you to really settle. Bobby actually gave the talk today, the main talk at the Buddhist birthday ceremony. And she talked about her garden, and she talked about tomatoes. And she talked about these tomatoes begin with this very, very small seed. And but she was just amazed that this seed knew what to do. This seed just knew what to do. It knew, and then from this little seed, she had these bountiful tomatoes that she and Mary picked. And in a sense, we all have that. We all have that seed. We all have that beginning. Buddha had that beginning as well. That seed for him was like, what is this? He left the palace. What is this all about? And that seed, that question, produced this. Produced us sitting here, produced that lineage chart, produced all of this. So we all have that. So I want to thank Elizabeth for your talk today, for coming down, for all of you being here today. So just practice. Allow that seed to nurture, to grow. So we talk about this Buddha, this Dharma, this teachings, and then this Sangha. And Sangha is this community of people who sit together. And of those three, they say the Sangha is most important. So thank you for showing up today, and have a great day.
Thank you, folks, for your Dharma talks. I enjoyed it. And upcoming events, it will be the YMJJ this May 3rd and 4th, and I'm going to lead that. And so that you can sit one day, you can sit 2 days, however if you like to do that. And we have, what's that?
They start at 9 o'clock, they don't start at 4:30.
Sunday will. 4:30?
Yeah, so folks here that will sleep, actually, I didn't know what he was talking about. So anyways, anybody, if you're here Saturday and Sunday and you stay overnight Sunday, we're going to get up at 4:30. But if it's a bit much for you, you can come on Sunday morning at a morning sitting, which will start around 10 o'clock. We'll start at 10 o'clock. Be sure to get in here for orientation, which will be at 9. And then you can sit up only till about 3. And then that'll be that day. Saturday, if you come in at 9, you can sit up until 9:30 in the evening, and then you'll go home. Or you can leave after dinner on Saturday also as possible. But Saturday is a longer day, and Sunday is the day where you get up real early, unless you come in at 10. So it is a little bit so that you can gauge how much you feel you can take, okay? We have several indoor Sangha work days scheduled, May 10th and May 30th. And please reserve on the website if you're available for that time. And they say that it's serious together action. So that will be on those dates. And Eva usually runs those, and I don't know if our work masters here will be, our house master will be involved in that. But having said that, we do have Josh here, and he's doing the farming, the garden. And so if you want to help in the garden, or you want to have a patch in the garden, like for about $20 for the whole season, you can have a patch out here and grow whatever you like and take it home with you. And so save the date of April, this is today actually. So today down here we have a art thing going. And so that's going to happen right after this at 12 o'clock. So if you want to do art, if anybody here has plans to, you just want to go down there, look around, see what's happening, please do that. It's down in the dining room. And so Summer Kilche registration is open. And so that's, please look on the website. I had the date. Does anybody know offhand the date? I believe it's August is going to end. So yeah, June 1st to the end of June, and then you can sit for 3 days, and then or up to the whole month. It's up to you. And like I said, if you
July 5th through August 2nd.
Okay, there you go. Thanks. I don't have the best memory. So then, during that Kilche, yes, if you're a senior citizen or something like that, and you need to have a rest during that time, like I said, you just talk to one listening, and he'll fix you up. But yeah, regular age folks, just do the whole sitting is what's recommended. And so we have practice on Wednesday nights, Wednesday evenings, 5:30. We have dinner, 6:15, orientation, and then 2 rounds of sitting. Sometimes we have come on practice. Sometimes we have consulting interviews. Just come on in and do what's happening on that Wednesday would be good. Okay, thank you. Oh, the shop here will be open. I believe Eric is here, so he'll open the shop. And we have snacks out here also. Thank you.
Yeah, my son identified